Neale Donald Walsch. Welcome to Planet Waves TV and Planet Waves FM.
Thank you, Eric. It's lovely to be here. How can I serve you?
Well, thank you for asking. I became familiar with your books in the late 90s, like a lot of people, through my girlfriend, Maria Hensler. At the time, we were traveling in Germany, and she was a tremendous fan of yours. And so I got your books by osmosis, like I'm sure a lot of people did. It's a good way to learn a book when your girlfriend reads the book and then like tells you everything she's reading constantly. And she found a quote. This is in '98, I think, that she knew would be relevant to me, and she wrote it down. And I have used this quote in more articles than all but one other quotation by Eric McLuhan, the son of Marshall McLuhan. So there's a quote from him on the same topic. And may I read this quote? It's from book 3.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so this is in God's voice. As I've said, this isn't the first time your civilization has been at this brink. I want to repeat this because it's vital that you hear this. Once before, on your planet, the technology that you developed was far greater than your ability to use it responsibly. You're approaching that same point in human history again. It is vitally important that you understand this. Your present technology is threatening to outstrip your ability to use it wisely. Your society is on the verge of becoming a product of your technology rather than your technology being a product of your society. When a society becomes a product of its own technology, it destroys itself. That's it.
I'll remember that quotation vividly.
I call it the Atlantis quote.
Yeah, it's a wonderful insight that was shared with me and given to me. And, and I agree with every single word of it, of course.
So, I first published this in '99, and then I kept quoting it in different articles over and over again, looking for who noticed, right? Looking for who was paying attention. And also, I have been in the background waiting, feeling for that tipping point. And this came through before what I call full digital conditions. I'm a historian of media, and so I track the history of technological developments. I consider full digital conditions to be Y2K. When we were told that this big spooky bug, the Y2K bug, could like wipe out civilization. That's what they were telling us in on the cusp of the millennium. And then of course the stolen election. Do you remember the symbol of the stolen election was a punch card, computer punch card? I was looking up at it. And then 9/11. This predates all of that. What light could you shed on this quote today, looking back on it, more than 30 years later, Neale?
I don't have any light to shed on it, other than to say that I think that it's word for word accurate, that we really should pay attention to what it has to say. But I don't have any, extrapolation to offer. I think that its implications are obvious, and all we have to do is look around. I guess I would offer one personal experience. I never thought when I was 25 or 35 or even 45 years old, for that matter, I'm now 82, going to be 82 in a couple of weeks. I never thought when I was 25, 35, or 45 that we would have the other technologies. Forget about AI right now. It's just even something as simple as Facebook. For me to imagine back when I was 25 years old that you open your laptop computer, if you even had a laptop computer, and that you could open a desktop computer and get onto some kind of a platform that would allow you to talk to anyone in the whole world or to the whole world, in fact, to the world entire in one fell swoop. It just never even occurred to me. So even the Facebook technology has shifted my reality and caused me to have to really think carefully about how we're going to use all of the modern technologies that are being made available to us, not the least of which, of course, is AI, artificial intelligence. But all of the technologies, how are we, what's sad for me, I'll say, for a guy who said a minute ago, I don't have any comment to make, I'm probably going to talk for a half hour anyway, just to tell you what a liar I am.
Take it away, Thaddeus.
Because,
As Paul McCartney once said.
yeah, exactly. Because I wouldn't have thought, when these technologies, Facebook, Twitter, all the rest of them, came into being, I thought, well, this is cool. This is going to make life better for us and easier for us and nicer for the largest number of people. I thought it would bring us closer together. I thought those kinds of social media, if you please, would bring us closer together. But in fact, it's tearing us further apart because it's giving people an opportunity to say things that they often wouldn't dare say in person, that they might even be ashamed to say in person.
Yeah.
But they get to hide behind their online persona, assuming it's even real. And so I'm sad to say that I'm seeing all of the technologies, frankly, every aspect of life on Earth in the past 40 years, pulling us further apart rather than bringing us closer together. Even our so-called spiritual technologies, we call them religions, but even our spiritual technologies are pulling us further apart rather than bringing us closer together. When I was a kid, I thought that, well, if we all could embrace a belief in God or a belief in our maker, or even some kind of higher power, even if we didn't agree on the theology behind every single aspect of it, but could we all agree that there is a higher power and that it's meant for the best and means the best for all of us? Could we all just agree on that? You know what, Eric? We can't all even agree on that. In fact, our ideas of a so-called higher power are pulling us apart. The biggest problem in the world today, in my experience, is that most people don't understand what the biggest problem in the world today is. We see the fallout from the biggest problem in the world today. We would call it alienation. I'm seeing a higher level of alienation between people of different races, different religions, different political persuasions,
Men and
even
women.
different. Yeah, I'm getting there. Different genders, different nationalities. Yeah, I've seen more alienation between people in these later years of my life than I've ever seen, that I ever saw in my 20s, 30s, or 40s. So, but people don't understand what's causing the alienation. They're not paying attention to what is causing the alienation and to the root cause of it. In my opinion, in my observation, and in my experience, the root cause is not necessarily our technologies, although they're certainly supporting the root cause, but the root cause is a belief system that most members of humanity, from my observation, have embraced. And that's the belief in separation. We believe we're separate from each other. We believe we're separate from every other aspect of life, separate from, the trees, the grass, the flowers, the birds, the bees, the ocean, separate from the earth itself, in a sense, living on the earth, but not a part of it. We're separate from it. So it's our job to have dominion over the earth. And sadly, Eric, separation from that higher power that we all say we agree on, that we agree with, or agree that exists. People, not everyone knows this, but surveys have been taken in most of the nations of the world in the past 25 years. It was a single question survey asking one question. The survey takers went down the streets of most of the cities of the world asking a single question. Do you believe in a higher power? 8.5 out of every 10 people said yes. There is a high level of 85% of respondents.
Wait, 85% said yes?
They believe in a higher power. They couldn't agree on what the higher power is,
Sure.
what it wants, what it does if it doesn't get what it wants, and what its relationship with us is. But 85% of the respondents agree that there's something more going on here that meets the eye, that there is some kind of higher power. So that is, I think, the cause of the alienation that we're seeing, is that we agree that we're separate from everything and everyone. What could change our alienation and could change our relationship with today's technologies, not the least of which is AI, what could change our whole experience would be a new decision by the largest number of people on the planet. A decision that tells us, you know what? We're not separate from each other. We are all one. There is only one thing, and we're all part of the one thing there is. We may want to call that one thing the higher power, or God, or Allah, or Brahman, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever word it pleases us to use. But we're all part of that same single thing. Each of us is an individuation of divinity.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong about that, but I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And if we decided that we are all one and treated each other that way, that what I do for you, I do for me, and what I fail to do for you, I fail to do for me. If we simply embrace that notion, the world would change for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Overnight. So what is it going to take for humanity to wake up, to see what the challenge is, what the problem is, what the solution is? By the way, I wrote a book on this topic called The God Solution. And the book suggests that we simply create a new definition of God and then step into the living of that definition as an individual expression.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and by the way, I send a digital copy of the God Solution to anybody who asks for it at no cost. It's a published book.
Can we associate it with the program? Can I put it on the program's page, or they have to
Oh,
go
of
directly
course.
to your office?
No.
Yeah, good.
All they have to do is ask for it, and you would forward that request to me, and I would send it to their email address. It's a digital copy, of course.
Okay.
It's a digital file of the author's manuscript of the book, The God Solution. They can also buy it in a hardcover copy if they want to get it in the bookstore, but they can get it from me at no cost whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I think that we are living in it. I agree with that quotation from 30 years ago from Conversations with God. I agree with it literally, word for word. And we have to be very careful how we're using today's technologies.
And what the quote says is that when the society becomes the product of its technology,
Yeah.
it destroys itself. I don't think that has anything to do with how we use it. I think that has to do with the society being the product. I mean, for example, the society is now entirely the product of digital technology, and I'm not talking about the buttons and the lights. I'm talking about how it changed our minds, how exposure to digital conditions changed our minds. So let me give you an example.
I was just going to ask you that.
Conversations with God was sounded to me, and why I liked it, why I trusted, besides the fact that it's like quite well written and sincere and all that, is that it sounded to me like you were in a dialogue with your inner teacher. Your inner teacher. That's how it manifested, as a voice in your mind, right? It wasn't coming from like up there, right? It was like Casper the Friendly Ghost. You were hearing a voice in your mind, and maybe not exactly channeling. It didn't sound that different than Helen Schuckman taking the Course in Miracles down. And I had been through and lived the Course in Miracles since the 1980s, and so I recognized it as to me, an authentic manifestation of the inner teacher. But today you have people going onto ChatGPT, and instead of asking their inner teacher a question, they go to an algorithm on a server in Texas or Utah or somewhere outside of themselves, and they ask a question, and then it takes all the garbage ever put on the internet and all the beauty and throws them an answer. To me, this is not only cluttering up what might be a relationship with their inner teacher, completely hijacking it. It's hijacking it with something that is not wholesome.
Or could be not wholesome. That is correct. I agree with everything you just said. I think your observations are accurate. And that's hopefully what I was pointing to a moment ago. Yes, I agree with you.
So the question is, so you had the ability as a literate person and being born in the era where you were to be able to have a sense of your inner being. I think that that's one of the most significant things that digital is stripping away from people, is their ability to connect with their inner being.
Oh, wow.
Their
You know,
inner
I don't
teacher.
think anyone, yeah, I don't think anyone's put it that directly in my conversations with others as simply and as directly as you just placed it. Yeah, we're replacing our inner being with the artificial intelligence that's being foisted upon us. And you're right. People ask a question, and instead of going internally to get the answer, you know, they get, you know, online somewhere and they get tons of responses, like you just said, the collective garbage. And not all of it is bad. It's some of the quotes, you know. I've had certain AI platforms to actually pull quotes out of the 9 Conversations with God books and send them to people in response to certain questions.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard about this. I haven't, you know, tried to create it happening. I have had nothing to do with it. A number of AI programmers have called me or written me and asked me if they could create an AI program that would respond to all human questions based on the books. And I've said to them, no, we're not going there. The whole point of the book is that we can each have our own conversations with God.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the whole point of the book.
Yes.
Not that we can get online
Yep.
and ask any question and have an artificial source of intelligence, so to speak, provide us with an answer.
Point and the example that you set, I think, is very important.
Yes, and so I think AI is getting to the point where it takes over human beings. We start acting like robots, like robots, like robots, like robots, like robots, like robots.
But don't, right? A lot of people
Yeah.
are afraid to go off the algorithm, go off script. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They don't know
Yeah.
what funny means. There's no spontaneous. Everything's got to be programmed.
Yeah.
This is my understanding of the meaning of this quote. Now, I have to say, I've spent a lot of time with the McLuhan's material, right? Which can I read you the quote that says, I think says the same thing that God said in your dialogues? It's quite short.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, thanks for your patience.
Is this
It's the complimentary quote that I try to keep them near each other. So maybe you know who Marshall McLuhan was, the medium is.
Oh, sure.
Sure. Yeah, and I suspected you may have read him. I mean, you have that kind of
no, I
voracious
haven't. I have
curiosity.
never read anything
Okay.
by him.
Okay, so here's a little intro. This is his son. This is his son. Marshall died in 80. His son was his like assistant for many years prior to that. And Eric wrote, "The body is everywhere assaulted by all of our new media, a state which has resulted in the deep disorientation of intellect and the destabilization of culture throughout the world. In the age of disembodied communication, the meaning significance, and experience of the body is utterly transformed and distorted. End of quote.
Yeah, for sure. Profoundly true in my experience. Nice work, Eric. We get out there and saying it like it is. That's my experience and my observation as well.
And one
But
of
the
these,
real question,
yes, please.
well, I was going to say the real question is not whether what he is saying and whether CWG, Conversations with God, said, and what you are saying. Is all of this true? That's not the real question. The real question is, so what? So now what?
Yeah.
You know, is there
Yes.
a solution, or are we caught up in a problem without a solution?
Which may not be a problem. I I have to. I'm in this environment a lot, and I comment on it a lot, and I sometimes get involved in very fraught issues. As a journalist, I don't live in those issues, but I have to get involved in them periodically. I am, let's say, called to. I always have to go back to my inner teacher. There's nothing outside of me that will work. And this is purely based on my Course in Miracles training. I wouldn't know how to do this, I don't think, had I not gone through those lessons for real and practiced. It is about, it's about going inside and asking for help.
I don't disagree with you for 1 minute, but the question I'm asking is, how do we take that solution that's working for you individually and cause it to be embraced by a sufficiently large number of people, what sociologists call critical mass, such that it becomes the first domino and the first domino falls? Because I get that it's working beautifully for Eric, and
When I use it, yeah.
yeah, but the real question is, can we create critical mass around such a notion fast enough to overcome the onrush of technological embracing of humanity?
Yeah, well, I mean, ChatGPT broke the record for the fastest number of signups and the biggest number of subscriptions, and it's capitalized at $500 billion. Nothing can stop them, and they can stop them as an entity. And they want all the water and all the electricity and all the coal and all the air to run their little chat program. That I call it artificial God. I say it shouldn't be called AI; it should be called AG. It's artificial God.
Yeah,
It's a
nice.
spiritual crisis. And the only way out of that, and I agree, and what you did was bold and perilous to publish those books. I give you a lot of credit for being that bold and for embracing those perils consciously, or maybe not, but willingly. Not everybody, not everybody is interested, and there's a lot of easy answers. I mean, and this is an easy answer, right? It's an easy answer. It's like cheating on your homework with ChatGPT. It's easy. And so, and when it becomes easy to encounter something you think is God, that I must say is keeping me up nights. And that's the product, the word product of your technology. It's not that the robots are going to take over, but they could. They could tell the plane to miss the runway by a mile. They could do that. But I don't think that's the main issue. I think that it's the consciousness, the state of mind. And that's so dense in people. It's so dense. You would think thought would be the most flexible thing, but the ego is dense.
When are you going to finish writing your book?
Well, I go on, I write every week. I write an annual book every year. I write somewhere around 250,000 words a year, and it's all available. I'll be happy to send you some. To put this in a
No,
book,
no.
that you're the first person who said that, and it would be a short book. And I would start with a transcript of this conversation. And yeah, I mean, I have a lot to say. I am a writer, and I take it seriously. I write every day and publish and do a couple of programs a week.
I want to encourage you to actually put your understanding, your awareness, your observation into a book that could be read and could wind up being read, frankly, by millions of people. If someone had said to me, Eric, if someone had said to me in 1995 that this piece of material you're putting between two hardcovers of a book is going to reach 15 million people in 37 languages, I would have laughed in their face.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. But it has, not bragging, just saying, has reached 15 million people in 37 languages.
Mm-hmm.
So what people like Eric need to consider is what you're cheating humanity out of by not finishing your book, putting it between two hardcovers and getting it out there.
Yeah, I agree. That's an important step, and I will take your encouragement. But I do distribute my work every single week to as many
Yeah, but
people
we
as
need
I
it.
can.
I'm glad you do, but we need it available to us. A New York Times best-selling book is going to reach a lot of people, and if it's published by a major publisher, Random House or Putnam or one of the international publishers, it in fact will wind up being translated into many, many different languages and sold on the street corner in Norway, in Czechoslovakia, in Romania. And that's what we need. And you've got the insight to reach those people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you dare fail to do so.
Message taken, Neale. Good. So that's just me doing what I'm doing about it in a slightly different way, just a little bit different format. I bet I've got most of it written already. I mean, this is the topic I write about no matter what I write about. I write a horoscope column, I write articles, I do this program. I'm refining this message. I couldn't speak like this had I not already written it 50 times and brought it onto my show 50 times. So now, can we talk to people about what it might mean for them to tune in to their inner teacher?
I can only tell them what it meant to me.
Definitely.
I wouldn't be so presumptuous
Yep.
as to suggest that I know what it could do or what it could be for them.
Were you an atheist at the time you started the book?
No.
So what was your spiritual orientation before that first conversation?
Well, I went through a whole metamorphosis. I started off in life as a young boy, as a Roman Catholic because my parents put me into a Roman Catholic school, both of them being Roman Catholic. So they enrolled me in a Catholic school. And you know what, Eric? I thought I was so into the God thing that I thought that I was going to be a priest. I was, and at the age of 16 or 17, I was yearning to go to, and the nuns in school, the nuns who were teaching us in school, said to my mother, "Your son has the calling."
Yeah.
So
you
my
wrote
mother,
a testament. You ended up writing a testament.
yeah, well, that's another story. That's that long story I was telling you, that metamorphosis. But the answer to your question is, I started off as a Catholic, then somewhere around age 22 or 23, I kind of like stepped away from rigid Catholicism and looked at the larger question of broader Christianity, Protestants, Lutherans, Methodists, Baptists, etc. And then around 28 or 29, I stepped away from the whole Christian theology. I didn't deny it. I just kind of wanted a broader understanding. So I stepped away from, the idea that there's only one way to get to the place that we call heaven. And then I started looking at other religions. I studied Judaism closely, carefully. I took a close look at Islam. I looked at the Buddhist tradition, as some of the Hindu teachings and so forth, I began to broaden my understanding and my awareness of what some of those spiritual traditions share with humanity. And so that's the background with which I came to the Conversations with God encounter at the age of 48 or 49 or whatever. I was approaching 50 there. So I felt, yes, there's a God. Yes, there's huge, tremendous disagreement among human beings about who and what God is, what God wants, what God does if God doesn't get what God wants, and all the rest. But there doesn't seem to be much disagreement that there is some kind of higher power. As I said a minute ago, most of us agree there's more going on here than meets the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Or as Bill put it, I thought he put it perfectly when he said in one of his plays, there are more things in heaven and earth ratio than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
Right. So can you skip ahead to the night that I know you've told the story like 2,000 times, but most of my listeners haven't heard it. When the first kind of response came in, what happened? Pencil and paper.
I sat down to write an angry letter to God because, it happened that my life fell apart in a 10-day period. I lost my relationship with my lovely wife, wonderful person. We're still friends. I'm happy to say we're still friends, but we're no longer married. And so I lost that relationship. And 5 days later, 5 days after we agreed amicably, it was not a big argument. It was not a lot of, negative emotion, but we amicably agreed to end our relationship. Okay, fair enough. I said, I'll leave. I'll tell you what, I'll get a little apartment someplace. I'll have visitation with the children and we'll make this work. So we agreed. But 5 days later, I lost my job. The corporation that I was working for needed, they said, to downsize. So they had a reorganization. And I was the last person hired. So by their company seniority rules, last person in, first person out. I was let go regardless of what they thought of my abilities or my skills. It was simply a seniority question. So now within 5 days, I lose my relationship and I lose my job. But wait, the world wasn't done with me yet. I'm driving down the road going to an interview for a job that I could certainly could have been hired for. In fact, I thought I would get the job because my former boss had given me a glowing letter of recommendation saying this is the last guy we would have released, but seniority rules dictated that we had to let him go. But his skills, were outstanding, and we think you'll find him to be a wonderful employee. So heading to this job interview, I never got to the interview. An elderly gentleman, an 85-year-old guy, decided to make a left turn in front of my car as I'm driving down the road toward the interview. He totaled my car, smashed directly into the driver's side. I was lucky, frankly, to escape with my life.
Yeah.
But I wound up with a broken neck and not a hairline fracture. I didn't suffer a hairline fracture. I recall the wording on the report to this day. This is 40 years ago, but I remember to this day what it said. I had suffered a 3/4 inch avulsion fracture of the 7th cervical vertebrae posteriorly. In other words, a crack in my neck large enough to put a pencil through. Now, when I woke up in the operating room, the doctor looked at me and he said, "What are you going to do with the rest of your life? Because you've been given an incredible gift. Most people who come in here with a break in their neck that large, that severe,
And not
die,
spinal cord, yeah.
Die instantly.
Oh.
Well, because of spinal cord complications.
Yeah.
Or if they don't die instantly, at the very least, they're paralyzed from the neck down. You have suffered neither consequence, Mr. Walsch. You're a miracle. I've been in this ER, in this emergency room as a doctor for 13 years. I've never seen anything like this. So what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Because you've been given an incredible gift. I thought about that. But you know what? I couldn't get a job anywhere. I was still out there trying to search for a job, but because they had put me in what they call a Philadelphia collar. A Philadelphia collar is a plastic collar that you wear around your neck. And the doctor said you're not to take this collar off for any reason. I don't care what you're doing, taking a shower, sleeping, making mad, passionate love. I don't care what you're doing. Do not take this collar off for any reason until we tell you to, because it's the only thing holding your head up, Mr. Walsh. I said, fair enough. So I wore the collar, but I'm going to job interviews and nobody would hire me anywhere, in
Right.
spite of the glowing letter of recommendation.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out what was. Finally, the seventh guy who interviewed me said, Mr. Walsh, I got to be honest with you. Nobody's going to hire you when you're wearing that thing around your neck. We're clear that you are handicapped right now, that you had a severe injury. One wrong move on the job, and we're paying your medical bills for the next 14 years. You come in here when that thing is off your neck and you're all in one piece again. We hire you in 30 seconds. So I couldn't get a job anywhere. Finally, I did manage to get a little weekend fill-in job. I'm telling you this story for a reason, because you asked me about it.
Yeah.
I got a little weekend job, to fill in for a guy, to fill in for employees that didn't want to work 7 days a week. So I got a weekend job making just enough money to afford a little one-room flat above somebody's garage. And that's when I woke up. I was in that flat about, who knows, 2 months, about 8 or 10 weeks. And I woke up one morning. But you know what was nice, because I didn't have to live on the street anymore. I was living on the sidewalk, by the way, for a year. I had nowhere to go and nowhere to live. Nobody would rent me an apartment. I
With the
couldn't.
collar on, with the
No, because I didn't have any money anymore. I had spent all the money, all my savings were gone. So I couldn't put down first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit. It costs $4 or $5 grand or $6 grand just to get into an apartment. So I couldn't find a place. I finally found a little place, like as I said, a little one-room flat above somebody's garage. But you know what? At least it had a bathroom. Because when you're living on the sidewalk, where do you relieve yourself? You have to sneak into restaurants, for God's sake, and hope the manager doesn't throw you out, asking you, no. We don't want anybody panhandling the customers. Don't come in here. Don't let me call the police. So, but I woke up after I was in that little flat, after I was there about 8 or 10 weeks. And I woke up one morning furious with life. I thought, wait a minute. What have I done to deserve a life of such continuing struggle?
Yeah.
What does it take to make life work? What are the rules? Somebody tell me the rules. I'll play this stupid game. Just give me the rule book. And I sat down at my coffee table and I wrote an angry letter to God. There was a yellow legal pad on the coffee table. I was making lists of things I wanted to do. And so I wrote an angry letter to God. I mean, literally, it's 4:30 in the morning. I'm not thinking straight. I'm just getting my feelings out. So I wrote this angry letter, impromptu. Dear God, what does it take to make life work? What have I done to deserve a life of such continuing struggle? That's when I heard the voice in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a voiceless voice. It didn't sound like a man or a woman or a child. It was like the voice of one's own thoughts, but it was clearly coming from someplace exterior to myself.
Yeah.
And the voice said, Neale, do you really want answers to all of these questions?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you just venting? And I'm thinking, yeah, I would think I'm venting, but if you've got answers, I'd sure as hell like to know what they are. And the voice says to me, you are sure as hell about a lot of things, but wouldn't you rather be sure as heaven? And I'm thinking, all right, what's that supposed to mean?
Semantics.
And then God answered my question. Mm-hmm. She said, take down everything that I'm saying. And I did.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that the voice said, the more questions I had. And the more questions I had, the more answers he gave me. And the more answers she gave me, the more questions I had. Until I wound up realizing that I was writing pages and pages and pages of dialogue. And this went on for several days, in a couple of weeks. And just every morning I'm waking up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, continuing this dialogue, which was beginning to fascinate me. But I wasn't trying to write a book. Eric, had never even occurred to me that I would write a book, or that anyone else would ever see this. I was experiencing a very individual, personal, sacred encounter. That's how I experienced it. But I was told in the dialogue, Neale, you will make of this one day a book, and it will be accessed by many people.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, now I got you. We'll see about that. I thought this is a great way to prove, because I knew that there wasn't a publisher in the country that was going to publish a book because a guy up in Oregon claims to be talking to God. It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, you know what? I'm going to send my handwritten notes. I'm going to just Xerox the pages and send them to a couple of publishers just to see. Because if it turns out that the book is published, I will know that it's real, because it said to me, this will be published and accessed by many people. So sure enough, I sent it off to a publisher, and about 2.5 weeks later, the phone rings and some guy says, Mr. Walsh, we'd like to publish your book. We find these notes fascinating. I said, you're kidding me. You're going to publish a book by a guy who's talking to God? He said, that's a great work of fiction. And I said, oh, whoa, wait a minute. You're not publishing it as a fiction book. He said, well, we thought it was a piece of fiction about a guy who has an argument with God. And, he has a two-way conversation. I said, it's not a work of fiction. And the publisher says to me, Mr. Walsh, are you trying to tell me that you think this actually happened to you?
You think?
I said, that was the point of it. That's why I sent it to you. He said, okay, all right. We think it's fascinating information. We'll put it out as a nonfiction book, but it's not going to find 500 readers. I mean, people are not going to be flocking to the store to buy a book because some guy up in Oregon claims that God is talking to him. It's not going to happen. But we'll put it out because it's too good of material just to toss it into the rejection file. So they put it out, and he was right. He was absolutely right. The book did not find 500 readers.
Then what
It
happened?
found 5 million.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Again, not bragging, just saying.
I get it. No, I'm always interested in the story of how these books come to be. And this is amazing. What year was that angry letter written on the note on the yellow pad?
Let's see. 1993, something like that, 93 or 94, somewhere in there. I don't recall the exact. I know I remember the date it was published. It was published in 5/5/95, but the actual experience was probably a year and a half or 2 years ahead of that.
Yep.
So probably 1993, somewhere in there.
Amazing. Do you have any interest in astrology at all?
Only to the extent that I've, looked at it. I mean, not closely, but heard about it, and I understand what astrologers are suggesting, that the placement of the planets produces energetic projections, energetic influences on the Earth and on people born at certain times. So I understand the basis behind astrology,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't ever been, intrigued enough to go to an astrologer and get a reading.
Well, here you are. I am an astrologer,
Aha!
and yeah, I mean that's the premise of all my work. I don't bring it into every conversation, but I did your chart, and
Oh, for gosh
yeah,
sake.
and what I was interested in was the astrology of the Uncommon Dialogue and the publication. And I have to tell you that it's quite amazing, as you might expect. There's a factor that entered astrology in the 1970s called Chiron. And it brings in the human potential factor into astrology. It makes astrology, it gives astrology the opportunity to be a healing art rather than just a kind of fortune telling thing. Chiron, most people know Chiron as the wounded healer, suffers an injury, and then brings in all this other, uses the process of healing the injury to bring in a whole lot of teachings. So, I mean, it is rarely that the shoe fits so closely that you sustained an injury, and then in the process of that, really begin a deep spiritual healing process. And your Chiron natal placement is very impressive, but more so is the transits, that the movement of Chiron through your chart as all of this happened. I mean, I can show you if you want. I mean, would you like to see? Do you have a minute to look?
I'm kind of curious. How could you do a chart if you didn't know my birth date and the time of my birth and all the necessary?
You're on Astro Databank. You're somehow, are you born at 4:19 in the morning?
Yeah.
To the minute in Milwaukee?
Yes.
Yeah.
1943, yeah.
Eastern Wartime. So hold on, let me see if I can video. So this is what your chart looks like. Now I know you can't see it that good, but I'll send it to you. So one of the, like, you have this large concentration of planets from here. I've got everything back from here to here. Like most of your planets are condensed in a very concentrated place. See that?
Yes, I do see it.
And this is the most sensitive line in the chart. It's called the rising sign or the ascendant. And just as this is happening in 1993, Chiron comes right through there. And this is always a before and after moment for people. And boy, talk about a before and after moment for you. Are you able to see what I'm doing here? Do you have looking down at your laptop screen?
Yes, yes.
So Chiron is in a very elliptical orbit. It's very lopsided. And so it's closest to the sun basically in the early 90s. And it comes whipping through like this in the early 1990s. And I have done these as interviews probably with somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 people. So I'm aware of like the way that this influence can just bring things to life, transform people. And this is exactly what happened. I mean, this is where Chiron was in 91. Here it is in 93. Here it is in 95, lined up with your sun when you emerge as a publisher. Chiron conjunct the sun. It's very close to your Chiron return at age 50. The book comes out when you're about 50, right? It comes out in 95, so you're 52.
Yes.
So all condensed right into this. It's really uncanny. I mean, it is classic. It's textbook. With your permission, I will write a chapter about this somewhere, an article about this. It's amazing. And I didn't know about the injury. I had read that stuff, but somehow it's been 30 years. I didn't know that. So other things, here is the volatile, angry element, right? That damn, whatever. And here it manifests as a kind of a warrior instinct from here to here. The aspects are talking. There's your natal Chiron, and it's very, very tense from here to here. Let me see if I can draw that in for you. Because then something else happens. So here's the part where there's all the tension and the anger and the kind of like misdirected warrior stuff. But then this is much more open, and it flows right into Mercury, your writing voice and your speaking voice. And so you essentially have the choice of frustrated anger, including a lot of sexual frustration, or the cosmic valve opens and you let the mercurial conscious linguistic force, and that's what happened. You make contact with God by taking a pen to paper. It's amazing. In the third house of writing. I mean, it just keeps getting better. I've been looking at the chart all week, and then I thought, okay, I got to get serious about this and really take a look at this and look at the transits. And, with a closer look at the chronology, I could tune it right up. I mean, I'm sure it's going to align within weeks or months to these events.
Remarkable.
Yeah. Thank you
Unbelievable.
for that. I really appreciate that. And usually I ask, but your data was published and wide open, and I came with love in my heart. So yeah,
Interesting. Totally fascinating. Utterly fascinating. Okay, I'm a believer. I'm a believer.
two other things. The Chiron return, when the book is, you're in the middle of it all, it's 50, 51.
Yeah.
One of the biggest turning points in most people's lives, but they don't all get it. You had nowhere else to go, right? You were either going to die or do something exciting. Very important. So you are kind of like a proving case of the Chiron return when you work it, when you invest yourself. And then the other one is that the classic before and after moment happens right here. And this is where Chiron was, right in that before and after moment. And it was going quick. It just goes right through. And that line is the before and after line, and that's where Chiron was. So I'll drop you a note via your office, and maybe if you have, I don't know if there's a chronology of this. Has anyone put together a chronology of no? You probably, if you'd be willing, we can play and have one of the most awesome case studies in Chiron, because you're like a living incarnation of Chiron. I mean, really, I mean, yeah. I mean, are you a horse or are you a person? Is there a horse back there, or um, I can't see. I can only see your shoulders.
Well, my wife would say a horse's ass,
Yeah,
but that's a whole different.
that is an angle on Chiron that has not made it into the literature yet. and
Just
we can
kidding. She
and we
wouldn't
can get
really
in.
say that.
And
I
you're
just, I went for a punchline. I can't resist it. But actually, my wife is a very sweet lady who would never say such a thing.
No, it's good to be self-effacing sometimes, and we all love self-effacing
You
users.
know what's interesting when I look at that chart, though? You're not going to believe this. I'm not making this up. All my life, since I was 13 years old, I've had a favorite number. And my favorite number, anyone who knows me knows my favorite number
21.
is, yeah, my favorite number has been 21
Hmm.
since I was 13 years old,
Hmm.
because that's the number that Warren Spahn wore on his uniform when he pitched for the Milwaukee Braves. And that became my favorite number. It's been my favorite number for the rest of my life. And when I looked at this chart, I'm looking like, oh, are you kidding me? 21?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's fun. And in the right hands, astrology is pretty cool. In the wrong hands, it's like it gets kind of kitsch.
Yeah, I
So
can
it's
see what that
easy to
could
be,
be.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see how that could happen. It has to be a person with, forgive me, I'm not playing towards you, but a person with enormous integrity, deep personal commitment, high level of awareness, and sensitivity, and a determination never to violate the trust that people place in you.
So true. Thank you. So true. It's so easy to make up a story. Look at all the planets. You could just make up any story.
Sure, of course.
So you have to be, I find I'm constantly checking myself, trying to prove myself wrong. Oh, maybe that's not right.
Well, God bless you for the work you're doing.
Thank you,
And
Neale.
I can't wait for your book to come out.
I will. You'll be you'll be hearing from me. Um, yeah, I'll write to your office when we're done. I have to say this has been absolutely wonderful experience. Your vibe is, and you know what? I will tell you something else. I am always looking to older men, now that I'm 61, I'm becoming one, for a model of aging as a man. And I take you as such.
Well, that's a sweet thing to say. Thank you very much for that generous and very kind compliment.
Yeah.
I will be 82 in a couple of weeks. And I have to tell you, I never thought, based on my health situation, I never thought that I would live anywhere near 82 years
Yeah.
because I've had a congenital heart defect from birth,
Uh-huh.
and I had open heart surgery about 10 or 12 years ago, where they, replaced 5 arteries in my heart
When was
that were,
this?
well, I guess it was about 19, yeah, it was about 10 years ago.
And you had quintuple bypass?
I had a quintuple bypass.
Oh, I'm glad you
Yeah,
survived all that and good style.
they took out 5 arteries, and the cardiologist who did the work on me said, this is one of the most severe cases of artery blockages we've ever seen. We were pulling out arteries from everywhere in your body, your leg, your arm, your chest, to put them into your heart. He said, but you needed a quintuple bypass. But when I woke up from the operating table, he looked at me and he said, congratulations, you just bought yourself 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to hear doctors congratulate them as often as you do. You have an act for the doctor saying, "Yo, congratulations, bro. You're
Yeah,
still here." And what
yeah,
are you going to do with the rest of your life, Neil?
yeah.
You're doing it right now. You're doing it right now.
So it's been an interesting journey for
Yes.
sure.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Yeah, you have lived, in my view, as someone who's heard many, many, many life stories, you've lived a full life. I mean, yeah, an inspiration. You're an inspiration.
I've had a full life. I've had 7 marriages and 9 children.
Right. Wow.
So my current wife is my seventh wife. Not 7 live-in girlfriends, but 7 put a ring on her finger marriages. And I'm not bragging about it because it's a testimony to my utter inability to understand what makes relationships work until around 20 years ago, when about 10 years after my conversations with God encounter, when I decided to move into relationship in a whole different way for a whole different reason. So without getting into another long story, uh, I am a person who has lived a very interesting life. 9 children, 7 wives, 5 New York Times bestsellers, and being on Eric's program. Who could ask for more?
To top it off,
Who,
yes,
who could
both of our
ask for
lives
more?
have led to this moment. I agree with you.
Thank you, Eric.
Neil, all my love.
I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I appreciate the time we spent together.